What's going on? What's going on, everybody? It is the only sports podcast. That's right, the only sports podcast. I'm Will today. And as with every Friday, we are doing the solo show today. So it is just me. And much like just me on Fridays with the solo show, on Fridays, we always do the power rankings and then the reveal of the newest Super Bowl bubble. So, with that in mind, before we get into that, actually, let's talk about last night's game, which was going into it was projected to be one of the best games of the season. And then it ended up being that and tenfold because what a great game. I watched the first half of it. Then I went to go see the SpongeBob movie with my son, watched the second half of it last night and this morning. So the weirdest one of the weirdest calls you're ever going to see. I still don't understand how that was a 2-point conversion. It was yes, it was behind the line of scrimmage. It was a fumble that was blown dead, but then one of the Seattle Seahawks players touched it in the end zone, and that still counts, I guess. I don't know. Again, it's one of those things where you're going to look back on that if you're a Rams fan and be like, this game was fixed, this league is fixed, all that kind of stuff. But when you look back at a football fan, you're like, yeah, that was a weird call. I've never seen a call like that. That's going to be in the highlight reel forever as just one of the weirdest 2-point conversions you're ever going to see. But it made the game interesting. I mean, if you're a fan of football, you're watching that and you're like, well, they're going to OT now. So I guess I like that the refs just screwed over the Seahawks here. I don't know. But after that, then of course the Seahawks come back. Entering the fourth quarter, they were down 30-14. They scored two quick touchdowns, that weird 2-point conversion, and then go into OT, where in OT, the Rams score first. And again, that drive was 11 plays, 75 yards. And then the Seahawks basically answer it with the pretty much same exact drive and then score a touchdown, go for 2 points. So Seattle, again, the one thing I did want to see from this game, because again, the Thursday night games are so weird that I don't feel like you can put a lot of stock in them, because I feel like we've seen some of the weirdest, not only games, but outcomes when it comes to Thursday night games, just all season. Like when it's been a really good team against a really bad team, it's usually the bad team either wins or it's a shootout. I don't know. So how much stock you want to put in the Thursday night games, that is up to you. Also, he says, hi, bro. Maricum E9Y. Hi from Jake YT. Love from India from Makaran E9Y. W from Jake YT. And then Nito Remix. Good morning. So hi to everybody. Love from America, I guess, from Las Vegas, where we're recording this. And good morning. I mean, it's afternoon here. So when we talk about this game, I think what everybody wanted to see from this game, I know what I specifically wanted to see from it was, what does Sam Darnold do specifically in these big games? Got to have a moment, because there was a lot riding on this game for both teams. But I really feel like the powers that be kind of had a lot more pressure and focus on the Seahawks coming into this game, because everybody in the league already knows, and fans and all that kind of stuff. Also, Honey Bunny, she waved. So thanks, Honey Bunny. She also put a football. But what is it? Outside of Seattle, I feel like when football fans look at the Seattle Seahawks team, everybody knows this Rams team is good, right? They've already went to a Super Bowl, almost went to one for pretty much the entire Stafford McVay. I'm blanking. Sorry. But for almost the entire Stafford and McVay era in the Los Angeles Rams, since those two have been put together, they've always been in that kind of, I mean, what we're going to talk about later, the Super Bowl bubble, where the first couple years they were always a threat in the NFC. Now the NFC West has just gotten really good, and they're still kind of the class of that division, with Stafford now most likely going to win MVP this year. So on the flip side for Seattle, it really came down to Sam Darnold was last year an anomaly, right? Was last year just the outlier in an otherwise kind of career where it's just been, he's just never been the guy, right? Last year it was, oh, is it Kevin O'Connell? Is it how the Minnesota Vikings are, is it their system? Can they plug and play anybody? And for what we've seen this year, it's like, no, that was pretty much, it looked like it was Darnold because we've seen a lot of different quarterbacks, including Nine, Casino and our favorite quarterback on this podcast, who gave himself his own nickname. But when it comes to Sam Darnold, this was the Sam Darnold game. He didn't have a great game for 3.5 quarters of it, but what he did have was a great fourth quarter and a great OT to win it. And usually it's the opposite, right? Usually he has a rough game and then they end up losing in a very winnable game. And then at the end of it, much like last year in the playoffs against, I think it was this Rams team, where it was just, he was the sole reason they lost. All the hopes and dreams of a very good Minnesota Vikings team last year kind of went down the drain. And everybody, rightfully so, pointed the finger at Sam Darnold. Was just like, he's not the guy. And this year, really up until this game, I don't think we've seen a signature moment from him where you could point at him and be like, oh yeah, he is the guy. I know Casino is much higher on the Seahawks than I am, but last night, that game from Sam Darnold maybe kind of made me rethink the Seahawks team and go, oh yeah, maybe they are a legit, not just playoff contender, not just contender in the NFC, but a Super Bowl contender. Like maybe they are, this is the game that kind of skyrockets them to the Super Bowl, but we'll see where I put them in the rankings and in the Super Bowl bubble when we get to that. But as far as the Rams go, I don't think you look at this Rams team any differently than you did going into it, because they did everything great that this Rams team has been doing all season. Again, they lost Devontae Adams, and then Puka Nacua, when he's not throwing up racial slurs on streamers shows I've never heard of before. I'm too old to know streamers. Everybody's always like, "Oh man, this athlete went on this streamer show," and I'm like, I've never heard that name in my entire life. So, oh, this guy says, nice poster. Yeah, the good computer in my house. I just have a laptop. The good computer in my house is in my son's room. So this is all my son's stuff behind me. This isn't my room. This is his room. So that's his poster. But yeah, when it comes to Puka Nacua going on, I don't know, streamers, podcast, or streams and doing stuff that everyone didn't know was a bad thing to do until it was pointed out as a bad thing to do is, I don't know, weird. I don't really care. But last night, what I do care about is he had 12 receptions, 225 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was targeted 16 times. We've talked about this on this show when we look at what the Rams are. The Rams are, just get the ball in Matthew Stafford's hands, and then he will get it to his first or second wide receiver. That's it. That's all he targets. That's pretty much where the lion's share, 90% of his targets go all game, and it works. That's why the Rams are one of the best teams in the league, because they know, oh, we have these 2 really good wide receivers. Now, obviously, with Devontae Adams gone, oh, we have this really good wide receiver. And then it's like, okay, just get it into his hand 12 times a game, and you'll score, you'll look good. Also, Corum and Williams had a decent game. I really like what Corum has done, not only in the pass game, but in the run game the last couple of weeks. So that's added a nice little element. But I do think the last noteworthy thing to talk about in this game, and then we'll get into power rankings, is the Seattle Seahawks defense. Again, this was one of those things where when you look at what the Seattle Seahawks defense had done all season, it was one of those things where it was, oh, maybe this is just a legendary defense that nobody's going to be able to score on. And then, yes, it's a short week. Yes, I think you have to take Thursday night games with, in a thimble sized, instead of a full cup size, if you're talking about the difference between Sunday and Thursday night games. But there definitely is something here where all of a sudden, maybe there is a blueprint for whatever the Rams saw against on film for the Seattle Seahawks defense, that now you might be able to see other teams maybe open it up on them, maybe run the ball more, maybe pass more. I don't know, but that definitely, going into the playoffs, I feel like when you have a legitimate defense that is without question, one of the best in the league. I don't think 3 weeks before the playoffs start, you want to see your defense kind of get exposed a little when you were leaning so heavily on that defense being good to damn near great to get to the Super Bowl. But again, that also just might be Matthew Stafford and the Rams, where there's not really any other teams that can beat this Seahawks team like that. Also, it's in division, so there's the added element to that. But I'll tell you what, that win impressed me a lot for Seattle. Again, it's a 1-point win. The Rams pretty much did what they had to do at the end right there, just driving down in overtime against, again, that vaunted Seattle defense to get the lead. So again, I walked away actually kind of impressed with both. So let's read some more and then we'll get into the rankings right here. This says, now I think the Broncos win 1v1 against the Rams. I mean, I think those are the two, if not the three best teams, if you want to throw Seattle in that spot as the second best team in the league right now. So I do think I have those. Yeah, I do have Broncos, Seahawks, Rams in my top three. The order, we'll have to wait and see. People been sleeping in the Broncos. I think you mean on the Broncos. But yeah, Casino's one of them. Casino just is again our most viral clip on TikTok. Go read all the 100+ comments of when Casino said the Broncos win against the Packers was lucky, quote unquote. People lost their mind. So yeah, people are sleeping on the Broncos. Right now, I have them as one of the best three teams in the entire league. Spicy Hayes says 100. Thank you. I want the Broncos to win the bowl. I think that would be a good. I think right now my pick for the Super Bowl would be Broncos Rams, which is weird because that one like mind reader mentalist guy at the start of the season did, that thing where he goes into players' locker rooms and like is, makes people just crazy because they're like, how the hell did you know that? One of his predictions was it's going to be you guys versus the Broncos in the Super Bowl. I think it was in the Rams locker room in preseason. So that's weird. Weird. But again, it's right now, it's probably the most likely Super Bowl. It's time. Let's get to this week's power rankings. Now, the power rankings, again, we're supposed to be a weekly thing, but cruises and being out of town and Christmas and seasons and all that kind of stuff kind of stopped that. So what did happen was it just became a bi-weekly thing that is now, I thought I had done it a lot sooner than I had done it, but it's been a couple weeks. So let's reveal the week 16 power rankings. And usually on this thing, I just read like from a list, and I was just kind of like watching the show back and I was like, that's boring. I like visuals. I'm a visual learner. I like to see things on screen that just isn't my face. Also, with this mysterious scratch I literally woke up with in the morning that's just right on my face. I don't know what it is. It also doesn't hurt. It's just there. Again, woke up with it. So without further ado, let's drive into the week 16 power rankings. Let's start with the bottom six. And I put a nice visual for the people watching. The bottom six, if you're listening, I'll read it off to you. And in the order I have it. So I do have these ranked 1 to 32nd. So let's go in order here. 32nd, I have the Raiders. 31st, I have the Jets. 30th, I have the Titans. 29th, I have the Browns. 28th, I have the Cardinals. And 27th, I have the Giants. And this section right here is called the bottom six because I do think, without a shadow of a doubt, these are the worst six teams in the league. Now, again, the Raiders, I think, have suffered from what I think the Raiders have suffered from is really high expectations for a team that shouldn't have had high expectations. I mean, everybody thought, they're going to go into this season. They got Pete Carroll. They got Geno Smith. They got Ashton Genty, the rookie. Tom Brady's on it. So there was this overabundance of wealth of expectations for a team that hasn't done anything since 2002, right? There were a couple years there where we had, I got something in my throat. There was a couple years there with Derek Carr where they were a fun, feisty team, but as far as some type of, contender, I don't think they really ever were with Carr. They were just one of those fun bubble wild card teams that everybody was like, "Oh, the league's good when the Raiders are good." And it was like, yeah, I feel like you're just saying that because the Raiders are never good, right? And as a Las Vegas native and born and raised here, that hurts to say. My dad's a lifelong Raiders fan. I never jumped on the Raiders bandwagon. So even if there was one, which I don't think there has been again in 20 plus years, but yeah, the Raiders kind of got crushed under the weight of expectations that were thrust on them with no reason to have those kind of expectations. So let's jump to the next one, which is the New York Jets. Again, you can kind of say the same thing about the Raiders, which was there this wealth of expectations on the Jets? No, but it was, as always with every year with more teams we'll talk about, where there's some optimism there when it's always like, why was there optimism for this team? Justin Fields was the quarterback, who is a quarterback Casito and I both like. But if you're going into the season with Justin Fields as your starting quarterback, I don't think people are thinking, oh, in the AFC East with, this revamped Patriots team, with this feisty Bills team, with this other team that's kind of on the Jets level, and the Dolphins, but at least the Dolphins, we've seen them win recently. It's just, how are you not picking the Jets every year to just finish last when, again, their starting quarterback is always, without question, the least impressive starting quarterback in not only that division, but again, the bottom six teams in the league. So Jets, again, their hallmark the past couple of years, much like the Browns, who is the next team on this list, has been defense. So the Jets defense wasn't anything to write home about. They traded Quinyon Williams a couple weeks ago. So again, I don't know why, if you're the Jets or the Browns, you build these insane defenses that are shockingly top 5 in the league in almost every defensive stat, and then there's literally nothing you put on the offense that gives your defense even a little chance to upset some people. And that's what happened with the Browns this year. The Browns were a great defense for much of the season. They were a revolving door for a bunch of pieces on offense, most notably quarterback, where they tried Flacco, they tried Gabriel, now it's Shador Sanders, and then it's just a comical amount of errors when it comes to the offense for the Browns, where it's like, oh yeah, Shador Sanders is doing great. Let's take him out on the play to win the game when it's the 2-point conversion. Oh, Shador Sanders looks lost out there. Report comes out after the game. Oh, turns out they gave him the wrong wristband with different plays on it. It's like, Stefanski, we've seen you have legit offenses when you had Baker Mayfield in Cleveland, and now there's all these talks of like, oh, are you sabotaging Shador Sanders because he was one of those things that he was one of those assets that the owner wanted and you didn't want. So now you're taking him out on the game-winning play. You're giving him the wrong wristband. You're just, again, I've never seen a thing where especially a young rookie quarterback, goes to the sideline on a game-winning play call when there's a timeout, and the head coach is nowhere near him. That's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. You think the coach would want to, I don't know, settle the nerves of his young quarterback, in his first big game he's ever played in his life, big relative to, his first start, putting up all these yards, game-winning play. But instead, he's like 20 yards away from him on the sideline, just kind of looking at the field. I didn't think the Browns coaching staff's trying to sabotage him things were true until I saw all these comically like insane scenarios play out in real time. And then it was like, oh yeah, people are 100% right. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no other thing it could possibly be. And then Titans, again, I like Cam Ward. I think he's got a little bit better each week he's played, even though, he's had a pretty rough season for a rookie. But you look at that Titans team, they have maybe the worst offensive personnel in the league. Their offensive line is god awful. And then their defense, which was shockingly it finished last year as the best defense in the league, has just kind of folded in on itself and just been a defense that can't stop anybody, even in games where Cam Ward is, having career numbers. I mean, for him, rookie career numbers of playing the best he's played in any game this season. And then all of a sudden they can't stop anybody. It's just, again, I don't know how Jets, Browns, Titans, all these bottom six teams. Giants were supposed to have this great defense. Cardinals were supposed to have these great defenses. All these teams, for some reason, can figure out the defensive side of the ball, but the offensive side of the ball is this giant mystery, this giant enigma that it's like they can't even find good players. And the good players they find, they're just the second they're good, they're like, oh yeah, we'll give them away for a third round pick. And then it's like that guy was a 6th-round pick that you turned into like this all-star, and now you're giving him away for pennies on the dollar for nothing. It just, but again, that explains why they're the bottom 6. And then Giants, not really much to say on the Giants because again, we saw when they had all their young pieces, they were a formidable team. They beat the Chargers and Eagles in back-to-back weeks when they had Scattaboo and they had Jackson Dart, and you would have thrown, if you wouldn't have gotten hurt earlier, Malik Neighbors in that mix. They had a young group of guys where their defense was better than you thought it would be, like hard hitting. Their offense had all these young dynamic playmakers, and they were feisty. They were beating good teams. There was energy. The crowd was into it. And then all those guys just got hurt, and, the air went out of the balloon. But next year, again, if they could just get the right coaching staff in play, this might be a Patriot scenario where it's like, oh yeah, all the pieces are there. You just got to have the right guy to kind of find out what to do with those pieces and how to utilize them the best. The Cardinals, it looks like for Kyler Murray, he's played his last down as a Cardinal in the NFL. It looks like he'll be traded in the offseason. Who knows where he'll go? So I don't think Jacoby Brissett is going to be the long-term solution there, even though he's came into this system and looked infinitely better than Kyler Murray ever did. But when it comes to the Cardinals, I think that the biggest issue for the Cardinals, for me, especially as a former Jonathan Gannon defensive coordinator hater when he was with the Eagles. I just never liked how he handled the defense. Yes, he got a lot of sacks, but gave up a lot of big plays. He was making second and third string quarterbacks have like career years against the same defense that the very next year Vic Fangio comes into it and then immediately makes it like a top 5 defense. So I don't think Jonathan Gannon is a good defensive coordinator. I think he might be a worse head coach. I don't know why at the start of the season there was so much hype and praise, especially from Cardinals fans, for what a great coach Gannon was. And there had been, and then when I asked people why, when I asked Cardinals fans, why do you think this? What's the evidence? Everybody would just say, oh, well, you don't like him because he you think he cost the Eagles a Super Bowl title against the Chiefs. And I was like, yeah, I don't like him for that. And I saw how he did defensive schemes. So why would you think he would be a better head coach? And then you have a defensive head coach. And right now the Cardinals are 26th in total defense. So again, the Gannon truthers out there have been real quiet since, about 2 weeks into this regular season. But please, if you're still out there, I would still love to know what you thought you had in Gannon and what you actually ended up with, because the I told you so's is just, it's right there. Next up, let's go to the next 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go to the next 6. I have different numbers of teams on these. So the next 6, we have the hang in there group. So for the hang in there group, it is in order. It is Saints at 26, Falcons 25th, Commanders 24th, Bengals 23rd, Vikings 22nd, and the Dolphins 21st. And again, this is the hang in there crew, because unlike the bottom 6, there's enough at each of these teams, I think, where you just go, hang in there. Like, maybe next year. This is kind of like that where you're a kid and the older person in your life kind of just hits you on the chin a little and just goes, you'll get them next time. Like, there's always next year, you'll get them next time. With the Saints, it's one of those things where, like, hey, maybe Shuck is actually a good quarterback. And maybe Kellen Moore is actually a good head coach. And maybe you're, finishing the season with your defense being a borderline top 10 defense. So you look at, oh, young pieces, good offensive head coach. You're going to get a nice draft pick. Your defense is kind of borderline top 10 in a lot of categories. So it becomes one of those things where, hey, you're in a very winnable division. You're with the Bucks, Panthers, Falcons, where all of them every year just feel like they never reach the expectations we have for them collectively going into the season. So with the Saints, you're looking at this, hodgepodge of a team you got right here, new head coach, and you're like, hey, maybe we got something here. So again, hang in there for next year. Falcons, you already have the pieces. Again, Michael Penix getting hurt kind of put a damper on your hopes, but I don't know if he's the right quarterback to lead this offense. But you got Drake London. This has been kind of a renaissance year for Kyle Pitts. You got Bijan Robinson there, who is, maybe a top 5, if not top 3 best running backs in the league. You got a pretty good offensive line. Your defense is what, average. So you get a couple more pieces on defense. You maybe get a rookie quarterback. Maybe this is where Kyler Murray goes. I feel like Kyler Murray in Atlanta would add a nice dynamic to this team, maybe open up the game more for a Kyle Pitts or a Bijan Robinson. You got Drake London right there. Maybe that's where he ends up going. Or the next pick is the Bengals. I feel like if there was a big blockbuster trade in the offseason where all of a sudden the Bengals are trading Joe Burrow to, the Falcons. If the Falcons, again, this is completely hypothetical. I haven't heard anything about this, but I'm just saying, if you're the Falcons organization and you look at all these pieces you have, you say, oh, we'll add more on defense. We'll shore up this offensive line a little bit, maybe get a number 2 wide receiver to Drake London, and we'll just trade away a couple picks or assets that we're not really using, keep the main guys, but everybody else is kind of, on the chopping block, or could be if the option was these these group of players that are B pluses. If you can trade them away for a Joe Burrow, again, why would you not do that? It does feel like Atlanta's one quarterback away. If they got legit quarterback play in that position in that division, if everybody's picking the Falcons next year to win the NFC South, if all of a sudden they get Joe Burrow or a Joe Burrow-esque character. Now, why would the Bengals do that? Because they're the Bengals. The Bengals bungle everything they've ever done in their franchise. Again, much like what they did this year, which is the offseason, they overpaid for 2 wide receivers in a league where wide receivers are, a dime a dozen. Now, I do think you have to keep Jamar Chase, but not letting T. Higgins walk feels like a mistake, because you can't have the best passing offense in the league if you can't protect your pass thrower, right? If you can't protect the guy throwing the passes, then it doesn't matter how good your wide receivers are. Exactly what everybody thought would happen with Burrow, and exactly what everybody thought would happen with the Bengals happened with Burrow and the Bengals. They couldn't protect him. He got hurt. The Bengals spent all their money on 2 guys, didn't shore up that offensive line, didn't shore up that defense, and then they came into this season with one of the worst offensive lines in the league, one of the worst defenses in the league, and then it got your quarterback hurt. It lost you a lot of games, and now with 5-6 weeks left in the season, they were out of the playoffs, when again they have, I think at this point, unarguably one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. So I'm just saying, if the Bengals want to deal Joe Burrow, if I'm Joe Burrow and I'm surveying the rest of the NFL, I'm looking at the NFC, I'm looking at the Falcons and just going like, man, if I was down there, I think, I could not only win that division, but I think I could be a real threat in the NFC a lot more than I could in the AFC, where I don't have to get past Lamar or a Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen. So again, if that happens, come back to this clip. Next up is the Commanders. And for the Commanders, again, they finished the season as a team that where they started the season, they were one of those ones that was like, oh, yeah, they were in the NFC Championship last game. Like, this train's just going to keep on rolling. And what actually happened was what everybody feared, much like with the Bengals, would happen, where you go, hey, we're looking at this Commanders team and we realize not only are they the oldest team in the league, but that was last year. Now this year, they're not only older, they're kind of signing older guys, and they have this quarterback that when he came out, the one fear everybody had with Jaden Daniels was he is a tiny guy. He looks tiny. He looks very skinny. He takes these big hits, kind of what we saw with Jackson Dart this year, which is just the play style, the always fighting for extra yards, the never sliding on big hits. Like, that stuff catches up to you. For Jackson Dart, for another quarterback on this list, Tua, where it's just like those guys are just taking these big hits, and now concussions already a problem for Jackson Dart. We've seen how well that's turned out for Tua. When it comes to Jaden Daniels, the concussions weren't the issue. The not quarterback body was the issue, where we saw him take a lot of hits last year that he miraculously got up from. This year, he didn't get up from those, and they weren't miraculous, and he's missed a lot of games. And then finally, Dan Quinn and that organization just took too many hits, were sitting him out for the rest of the season. Now, that's not saying that the Commanders, I have them higher than these other teams, because they've kind of been good and feisty the entire season with Mariota. They've played some really close games. Their defense is a lot better than I thought it would be, especially where they're not playing complementary football. And still, they are now 31st in the league. I think at one point they were like 15th, like kind of right around league average. But again, when you lose your quarterback, when you can't stop anybody, when you're giving up, 5-play touchdown drives and your defense is right out on the field, that stuff catches up to you. So with the Commanders, they were feisty, but they're the oldest team in the league, lost a lot of guys, lost their starting quarterback. It's like you can only do so much. Next up was the Minnesota Vikings. And for the Minnesota Vikings, it hurts to say if you're a Minnesota Vikings fan, but the thing with the Minnesota Vikings is they're a quarterback away. And the quarterback away is a quarterback they could have signed for a lot less money than he's probably going to be worth in his next contract. And that was Sam Darnold. And again, they were under the assumption that it was their system, it was their coach, it was an outlier year for Sam Darnold. And he's proved in this year in Seattle where it's like, oh yeah, maybe he's finally, after stints in Carolina and obviously with the Jets, when he went to the Rams for a bit, when he went, or no, not the Rams, when he went to the 49ers for a bit, it was one of those things where, yeah, maybe it took him a couple years to get to the level that people thought he could be at when he was the third pick in the first round, but he's finally looked like he reached that level. And last year, I know it looks a lot easier in retrospect to be like, well, did you see him in that wild card game? Like, yeah, that was bad. But then again, you hadn't seen JJ McCarthy in a regular season game before you just threw up your hands and went, oh, well, we got McCarthy. Like, let's just, get rid of him and bring in Darnold. It was just one of those things where, yeah, the playoff game was rough. But again, would you rather have a 14-win team? A 14-win team every year where at least you're getting to the playoffs, or would you rather have a team like this year where you are 6-8, you're pretty much out of the playoffs? I mean, I think mathematically they're even eliminated, but you're out of the playoffs, and going forward, now you have the same quarterback questions you did last year, but at least last year it was, can this guy win us a Super Bowl or get us to a Super Bowl? This year, now going into the offseason, it's, can this guy even play in the NFL? Is JJ McCarthy even good enough to get us a wild card? Not even get us to the Super Bowl. With Darnold, it was, can he win us 3 playoff games? With McCarthy, it's, can he win us games? So again, Vikings always feel like a team that is just always built to win now, and just for some reason never does because of stupid decisions like this. Kind of in that bottom 6 territory where it's, they have everything figured out. They have the guy in the building for a season, and then at the end they just go, hey, he's not the guy, we can do better. The same thing happened with Case Keenum, right? Where it was like next year they're like, oh, we can find somebody else. And then they didn't. And then it was just, oh, okay. Well, oh, now we found the guy with Darnold, and then they get rid of him too. All these 1 year wonders for these quarterbacks where they just think they could replicate that success with somebody else, and then they don't. It's so weird to me. And then with the Dolphins, again, we predicted on this show at the beginning of the season the Dolphins would be a dumpster fire. They're 6-8, and they feel like they're the dumpster fire of like a 3-win team. Just with all the turmoil, all the weird stuff going on in that franchise. Again, now it's, are they going to keep Mike McDaniels now that they benched Tua? Like, what if all of a sudden this same Dolphins team that put up 70 points on the Broncos, a year or two ago? What if now they bring in Ewers and it's just like this completely reinvigorated team where all of a sudden they're putting up 30 points in the last 3 games? Like, I feel like that would be enough for the, front office to be like, oh yeah, it was Tua. Like, McDaniels is our guy. Tua, maybe we'll just do a trade with the Cardinals where we'll get like a 2nd-round pick. We'll trade Tua to the Cardinals. They'll get Kyler Murray, and then they'll just, try to find a different quarterback to run that Mike McDaniel style. But again, I do think there's certain teams where you just go, oh, the last 3 weeks don't matter. These teams are out of the playoffs. And then there's teams where you go, well, these last 3 weeks don't matter because they're out of the playoffs, but it matters for next year, because these last 3 weeks for a lot of these teams just feel like kind of auditions for what is going to be next year. So that's the hang in with the next 6. Let's go to the next tier, which is, there's only 5 on this one. And this tier is called this is fine. And what that means is you're not as optimistic as you are with the last ones, the hang in theirs. Now, these teams are better right now, but if you're going forward, would you rather have the, hang in there optimism of a Falcons team where it's like, maybe we're 1 quarterback away? The Bengals, where it's like, maybe we just get a new defensive coordinator in here. The Saints, where it's like, hey, we're actually kind of doing a lot better than we thought we would this year. Maybe 1 more year under our belts and we're going to surprise some people. Or would you rather be this tier, which is the Chiefs at 20, Cowboys 19, Colts at 18, and Bucks at 17, followed by the Ravens at 16. And why I put these teams in here is, again, at the beginning of the season or the preseason, these were all the teams that everybody was, sticking their flag on and just being like, this is my team, this is their year, all that kind of stuff. Now with the Chiefs, obviously, after the Super Bowl with the Eagles last year, it was like, oh, they're going to bounce back. Of course, this is going to be the best. You heard this how many times? This is going to be the best Chiefs team since the Andy Reid and Mahomes era. They're getting everybody back. Everybody's young, right? They're going to have the second they get Rashee Rice back, all of a sudden they're going to have a true number 1 in this league, blah, 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 blah. And now with 3 weeks to go in the season, they're out of the playoffs. So the expectations for these teams, much like the Raiders, were sky high, but at least with these teams, it was warranted, right? With the Cowboys respect that the media and fans have for the Cowboys has never ceased to amaze me, where every year this is actually the best Cowboys team we've ever given Dak. Like, this is going to be the year. They got George Pickens. He's going to be the difference between wild card playoff losses and, NFC championship wins to go to the Super Bowl. And then what happened? They traded away Micah Parsons, and then all of a sudden their defense was worst in the league at 32nd. They fought themselves back up to be a bottom 20 defense, or now I think they are what? Let's see right now. Yeah, they're 29th. So they're the 29th in total defense, but I was told all year that, the defense, once they got Quinyon Williams in there, once they got, Kenny Clark from the Packers, then it was like, that's going to turn this defense around. And it did for about 2 games. And then all of a sudden reality came crashing back to earth. And it's the same story every year where it's not Dak's fault. It's not Dak's fault, even though in big games he never shows up. Oh, it's the defense's fault, even though the defense, when they stop people, they win games. So it's one of those things where, what is it? It's never the defense's fault, except when the defense shows up and then Dak doesn't. And then it's never Dak's fault, when he's putting up 40 points and the defense doesn't show up. Maybe it's, again, we can all agree, Cowboys fans and Cowboys haters alike can agree it's Jerry Jones' fault. Now, for the Cowboys fans, it's Jerry Jones' fault as a negative. For the Cowboys hater, it's Jerry Jones' fault as a positive. I love Jerry Jones. As an Eagles fan, I love Jerry Jones because if everybody thinks he's the issue, then please keep him there as long as he wants to be, as long as he's alive, because then we get this every year. Now, the Colts are different from the other four teams on this list. The Colts were, again, putting up historic numbers in the first month of the season where they were on pace to score more points than that undefeated Patriots team that lost to the Giants in the Super Bowl. So the expectations for the Colts were nothing at the start of the season. And then a month into the season, it was like the Colts, led by Daniel Jones and coached by Shane Steichen, are all of a sudden on pace to be like this historic offense that we've never seen before or haven't seen, since those great Brady Patriots teams. And then the wheels slowly started falling off even before the Daniel Jones injury. And then the Daniel Jones injury was kind of the cherry on top. And now we have Phillip Rivers, who we've seen from one game. He didn't look bad in that game, but again, the Colts are on the outside looking in for the playoffs right now, especially with having the Texans and Jaguars, two teams that right now are definitely better than they are in their own division. So could the Colts get back into the playoffs? Could they get back to the level of not preseason, but first month of the season hype we had for them? I doubt it, especially with Jones out, but they could be a wild card team, the last wild card team in the AFC, if all of a sudden, the Jaguars or Texans stumble with 3 weeks to go. So with the Buccaneers, that this was pretty much did you see what Baker Mayfield did last year? He's getting everybody back. And then there's a team every year, maybe two or three, but the team that got rocked with injuries, the year from hell year for the NFL, did feel like it was the Bucs, because at one point they'd lost their three starting pass catching options at wide receiver. They lost their two running backs, lost a bunch of guys on defense. Then Baker Mayfield started to get banged up. Because remember, at the start of the season, for pretty much the first half of the season, it was Baker Mayfield was on everybody's MVP ballot. He was one of the top three quarterbacks in the league by every metric you want to measure quarterbacks. And then again, he was doing all that with half of his offense being injured. And then all of a sudden the wheels just slowly started to fall off. The league kind of started to figure them out. Mike Evans then came back, and then all of a sudden it was the defense couldn't stop anybody. So yeah, they were scoring a lot of points, but then they weren't getting any stops. And now it's, a rock fight between the Bucks and Panthers with 3 weeks to go, who are both sitting at 7-7, when, not even a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, the Bucks, it was like, oh, the Bucks are clearly going to win this division by 3 games, not be tied with the Panthers with 3 games to go. And then the Ravens. Honestly, I don't even know what's going on with the Ravens. This is the biggest. With the other ones, you can be like, oh yeah, the Cowboys weren't as good as we anticipated. The Colts and Bucks kind of had injuries. The Chiefs, the Chiefs and the Ravens might fit this mold where it's like, what's wrong with these teams? Like with Lamar Jackson, he got injured, missed a couple weeks, but then it was also like he wasn't that good at the beginning of the season to begin with. And then since he's come back from the injury, he's not looked like himself at all. Again, we talked about this on Wednesday, where not only does he not look good, he looks disinterested in playing football, which I don't know, if you're a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, you don't want people to say, oh, he just doesn't look like he gives a shit about football, especially when you're one game behind in your division to go to the playoffs, again, in a year where the Chiefs are already out. So yeah, this is fine, because everything's on fire for these teams, and you kind of just have to, if you're a fan of these teams, kind of just sit there and smile and just be like, hey, everything's fine. We got two of the best quarterbacks in the league in Mahomes and Lamar. We got, an easy division with the Bucks. They should kill the Panthers in both games, but we'll see. And then with the Colts, you're like, oh, well, Daniel Jones is coming back next year. We'll just recreate that. And with the Cowboys, again, it's their year every year. So the next one is only four, and it is the I'm straight up not having a good time because for these four teams, and that was, oh no, I messed up. It was supposed to be the Panthers right here. And again, the Panthers, it's kind of good that the Bucks are here because the Panthers were the outlier in both these. Because if you're a Panthers fan, it doesn't fit in the this is fine. And it doesn't fit in the straight up not having a good time because, again, there were no expectations at all for the Panthers. So the Panthers didn't fit in either of those categories because if you're a Panthers fan, you have to be ecstatic with being 7-7 with 3 weeks to go, and you could potentially win this division in the NFC South and go to the playoffs. Especially Bryce Young has looked good. It's just one of those things where if you're a Panthers fan, I feel like no matter what happens, this is a win of a season because there were no expectations for you last year. Andy Dalton's taking your starting quarterback spot, and then all of a sudden, he gets in a car accident that forces Bryce Young to get back into the game. And then since then, Bryce Young has actually looked pretty decent. And maybe you do have a, starting caliber player for your franchise that you can build around. You get Tedero McMillan in the draft, and he's most likely going to win, offensive rookie of the year. So if you're a Panthers fan, it's not only this is fine, and it's not only you're having a good time, you're having a great time. Like the Panthers, again, they're fun. They're a fun team to root for. They're a fun, feisty underdog that, again, in 3 weeks' time could be in the wild cards. With the Steelers, I'd say you're not having a good time for the Steelers because, again, you got Aaron Rodgers, and the consensus going into this year, if I would have told you in preseason, oh, yeah, with 3 weeks to go, Bengals are out of it, Browns are out of it, and the Ravens are having a really bad year at 7-7, you would have been like, wait, you're telling me Ravens, Steelers, or Ravens, Browns, and Bengals are all out? Like they're all having a down year, all having way worse of a year than you think they would? We should be crushing it. And it's like, yeah, but you're not. But you're not. You're 7-7. You have Aaron Rodgers. I was looking at the Steelers schedule. The last good win, and by good win, I mean beating a team with a winning record. The last team that they beat with a winning record was in September, aka the first month of the NFL season. So the first month of the regular season is the last time this Steelers team has beaten a team with a winning record. Every other team with a winning record, they have not only lost to, but in half those games, they kind of got mollywomped by them. They got destroyed by all the good teams in the league. And now all of a sudden, the Ravens aren't having a good year at all. Lamar Jackson doesn't even look like he's interested in football. And with 3 weeks to go, they're one game back of you, and you still have to play them in the last week of the season. So again, they have what me and Casino called a must-win game against the Lions, when everybody corrected us and was like, well, as long as they beat the Ravens, they're in. But it's like, yeah, but do you really want to be a Steelers fan going into the playoffs and be like, oh yeah, the Steelers team, they won the division, but they actually haven't beat anybody with a winning record since September? Like, this is a must-win game, not for standing purposes. This is a must-win game to at least go into the playoffs with some semblance of confidence that you can actually hang with all these teams with winning records. Because last time I checked, the only ones in the playoffs right now are the ones with winning records. So if you're Steelers, straight up not having a good time. Same with the Lions. Again, both the Lions and Steelers are both 8-6. They play each other this week. But for the Lions, it just comes down to one of those things where you were the team from hell last year, like the Bucks have been this year, where everybody on your defense was injured. This year, looking it up, it was, I think, 2 or 3 of their defensive starters were injured. I mean, they have a lot of injuries on their defense, nothing compared to what they were last year, but it's also only 1 or 2 of their star players. So for their defense to be as bad as it has been, especially the past couple weeks, just makes you scratch your head and just be like, you have Aiden Hutchinson, you have all these, weapons on offense. You're scoring, but you can't stop a team to save your life. Again, I really thought that Monday night game where they just absolutely destroyed the Cowboys, kind of stopped the Cowboys too, when that was the height of up, the Cowboys are going to win the NFC East. The Cowboys figured out what they are to go on that Monday night game in prime time and kind of put the ass whooping they did on the Cowboys. That to me felt like it was the Lions just going, uh, we're here. We're finally figured it out. We're going to make a dent in this NFC North. And then all of a sudden, they just keep stumbling and they just keep stumbling. And the Packers and Bears just keep going a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. But now talking about the Packers are only in here. And again, 2 weeks ago, before last week's game against the Broncos, they would not have been in this category. They would have been in the next category because they would have been in the Super Bowl bubble. Because you look at the Packers and you just go, oh, they have top 5 offense, top 5 defense, one of the top 8 best coaches in the NFL. Jordan Love is having a great season. All these kind of things. Josh Jacobs looks good. They got Micah Parsons. But then again, in that Broncos game, they lose a lot of they lose, I think, 3 defensive starters. No one bigger than Micah Parsons, who kind of transformed that defense into this top 5 get pressure on the quarterback defense. And now you're really thinking, what is this Packers team even going to be? Because if they have no pass rush, if they can't stop anybody, I don't think they have the weapons offensively to win these shootout games. The only shootout we've seen was against the Cowboys earlier this season, when the Cowboys had the worst defense in the league. So right now, especially in the NFC, if the playoffs were to start, you're not playing any of these teams that have bottom tier defense, unless, the Packers can get what, the third or fourth seed and play the Panthers or the Bucks the first round. Like, that's the dream scenario. Every other scenario, it's just going to be one of those things where you're the Packers and you're going, how are we going to stop any of these teams? We've lost all our, offensive starters. So straight up, not having a good time. Now, before we get into the Super Bowl bubble, because again, the Super Bowl bubble has the top 11 teams. Let's read the comments we got here. Says like 9, that's a reference to good morning. So good morning to you. It is about 2 p.m. over here. So he says, American sports, you talking about American football? Well, trying to. Also, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that username. I have no idea how to say that. Leonard Parchment 6811 says, I'm in the house. Welcome. And the guy says, yes, it is American football. Yes, it is. Thank you for noticing. So now let's move into the Super Bowl bubble, the top 11 teams, according to myself. Casino did not give me his power rankings this week because I always ask Casino for his power rankings and it gives me about half of them. But then again, I don't even say his power rankings when they're on the show. I just do it to see where he's at after I've already done my list. So it's one of those things where I don't need it because these are my power rankings and I just call them the Only Sports Podcast power rankings. It's not like him and I differ wildly anyways, but just different orders. So for the Super Bowl bubble, we have now the outlier teams are the teams that are not quite in the Super Bowl bubble. Still things I just need to see from them the last couple weeks of the season. So now let's talk about those in order. The 6 on the outside of the main Super Bowl bubble are the Chargers at 11, 49ers at 10, Bears at 9, Eagles at 8, and then Texans at 7 and Jaguars at 6. So we have 3 on the outside of the bubble, 5 in the middle. Let's make the case for why the ones on the outside are not in the actual bubble themselves. So the Super Bowl bubble, starting with the Chargers. Again, the Chargers kind of feel like the Packers, where it just feels like one of those teams that I like their head coach, I like their quarterback, their defense is good, but the injuries have really gotten to this point with the Chargers where you just go, are they even going to survive being in, 3 playoff games where if they have to go to Denver, if they have to go to whoever wins the AFC East, or it's not AFC East, where they have to go to whoever wins the AFC South in terms of the Texans or the Jaguars. If the Chargers in wild card weekend have to play the Jaguars or Texans in their stadium, like I think everybody's going to be picking the Jaguars and Texans to beat these Chargers teams that again always start the season as preseason favorites where they got Herbert, they got Harbaugh, and then it just injuries have kind of derailed them this year. But it also looks like Herbert has just been banged up, maybe even during that or before that Eagles game. He just looks like he's kind of limping to the finish line. And again, with 3 weeks to go before the playoffs, I don't want to see my starting quarterback kind of wincing or hobbling off the field after every drive. So that's why I think of these 11 teams, I have to put the Chargers 11. Number 10, I had the 49ers. So with the 49ers, it really just comes down to the 49ers are surprising a lot of people, including myself, with just they lost pretty much all their star defensive players in the offseason, and still right now they have the 18th best total defense in the league. So for them to lose everybody, and then obviously they gain Robert Saleh back as a defensive coordinator, that defense is surprising. This whole team is surprising. This is the one team in the league I feel like I can't just quite put my finger on. I work with a lot of, here I am as Casino, talk about my coworkers, but I won't talk about any of them specifically because I have a lot of coworkers who are all just 49ers fans, which makes sense because I'm in Vegas. So there's always been a lot of 49ers fans in my life. But yeah, 49ers fans, I'm telling you, they're optimistic this year. They think they can surprise a lot of people. Christian McCaffrey is just back to in his prime of what he does. I think he leads that team in both receiving and rushing yards. And again, he's been on my fantasy team this entire year. He's been going off. He is just back to prime Christian McCaffrey. Brock Purdy hasn't been great, but he's been good enough to win them games. And again, we've already seen this team under Kyle Shanahan, led by Brock Purdy, with CMC just going off as a receiver and a running back. We've already seen that team in the playoffs. We've already seen that team get to a Super Bowl. So I don't think they're quite at the caliber because their defense isn't a top 3 defense like it was that year they did go to the Super Bowl the second time against the Chiefs. But if they all of a sudden upset some people and were in the NFC Championship game, I don't feel like I'd be surprised. I don't feel like really anybody would be. Number 9 is the Bears. Now, when it comes with the Bears, the thing with the Bears is they have a bottom tier defense. They have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they have the 8th worst defense in the league right now. Their defense is not good, but what their defense is 2 things that I feel like a lot of people in this league would want their team's defense to be, which is opportunistic and lucky. So opportunistic and lucky in the sense that they get a lot of turnovers, they get a lot of fumbles, they lead the league in interceptions, they lead the league in turnover differential. So they don't turn the ball over on offense and they get turnovers on defense, which is why, again, their defense is bad. But when you watch the game, you're like, oh, they're pretty much the definition of bend, don't break defense in this league, where you have a team that just creates opportunities on other teams' mistakes. And much like our next team on this list, which, oh no, actually I had the Jags way up here, but when we get to the Jags, we'll talk about the Jags in that same, kind of level, which is they're not necessarily a great defense, even though their defense is much better than the Bears defense, but the Jaguars are second in the league in turnover differential. So much like the Bears, they make you pay for your mistakes by getting turnovers, giving their offense a shot. Now, again, with the Bears, Caleb Williams, again, I'm told what a great quarterback Caleb Williams is. And then when you watch Caleb Williams play, he makes unbelievable throws and then misses the easy ones by 20 yards. It doesn't make any sense. I noticed that a lot in that Black Friday game against the Eagles, where he's making tight window throws to guys who aren't open at all and then just missing wildly like guys who don't have any defenders within 10 yards of him. It makes no sense. His completion percentage also proves that he has a long way to go. But again, it's only his second year in the league, and already the Bears are, one Green Bay win away from just winning that NFC North. So now let's go. Let's move to the next team on this list, which is my Philadelphia Eagles. Again, I do think the thing coming out of that Raiders game was not only was it a shutout, but the Raiders were not a threat to the Eagles. What every Eagles fan, including myself, was wanting to see in that Eagles game was just some semblance of a creative play calling where you just wanted to see something. Something new, something different. You wanted to see again for years. Especially with the Raiders, with the Chiefs. It was you already know the Chiefs are good. You already know the Chiefs are going to the playoffs. So when they play these really bad teams, that's when they would bust out, the merry-go-round play and all these weird things just to test to see if they could, right? They weren't even make right games. They were games where you said, okay, we know we're infinitely better than this team. Let's try some stuff out to see if we can maybe use some of this in the future. Let's get kind of our ducks in a row and just see if we are, a good, great, or elite team and practice against these teams we have way more talent than. That's kind of what that Raiders game against the Eagles this last week looked to me to be like. And what I saw coming out of that game was, obviously, we talked about it on Wednesday with the conspiracy theory that the guy that used to be at Bowling Green is now calling the plays. And again, the schemes were different. The plays were different. People, the internet sleuths were already taking the clips of that coach formerly at Bowling Green and being like, they ran the same play there that the Eagles ran for a touchdown and stuff like that. So that's the thing where I think you look at the Raiders game, and Purse right here says Raiders gave up weeks ago. They did, but still shutting out any team in the NFL means something. And what this game meant to me was, I already know the Eagles are good. What I need to see is them be great, them be a Super Bowl caliber team by kind of asserting their dominance and will on a team that, even if they gave up weeks ago, they gave up again. The Cowboys, you can go look at this clip. It's going all over X, especially on Eagles fan sites and stuff like that, where it was 3 weeks ago when the Cowboys demolished the Raiders. It was all hands on deck to let's put the Cowboys on this pedestal where the Cowboys have finally arrived. This is what you do to bad teams. And then when the Eagles beat that same Raiders team worse, then it becomes a thing where it's like, well, yeah, it's just the Raiders. Like, both things can be true. Like, yes, the Raiders are bad, but also asserted your dominance and will against a bad team with interesting play concepts that haven't been seen for the previous 14 weeks. I think there's something there. But again, I'm not going to let my biases as a Eagles fan, be like, up, Eagles are back. They're immediately in the Super Bowl bubble. No, because again, it was the Eagles, or it was the Raiders that they beat. So it's not like they beat some world builder. They beat the Raiders. And this guy also, QL, Cueil, says the Cowboys deriding on ESPN is weird. Yeah, it's been my entire life. Cowboys haven't been good or real Super Bowl contenders for 30 plus years. And for some reason, the way they're covered is like they're the Patriots dynasty. It's insane. Next up after the Eagles, you have to put the Texans. I almost put the Texans in the Super Bowl bubble because that defense is so good. The Texans defense, again, if you're the Patriots, if you're the Bills, I feel like you really do not want to see the Texans in that first round of the playoffs. In the wild card, you do not want to, even if you're at home, you do not want to see that Texans defense against your offense, especially if you're the Patriots and Bills, where if you're the Bills, you kind of really don't have a number one wide receiver option. And for the Patriots, you have Stephon Diggs, but that's kind of it. So if you're the Bills going in with no true number one wide receiver, and then the Patriots only going in with one, if the Texans shut down them, Like, I don't think, again, the Texans, I don't think they're going to score a lot of points. I see people just being like, "Up, I'm back on the CJ Stroud wagon." He hasn't been that eye popping to me when I've watched Texans game. He's been better than he was before, he got hurt and Davis Mills came in, but he hasn't been to the level we saw even in his rookie year. So I still think if you can score against the Texans, you can beat them, obviously. But the issue is, I don't think you can score against this defense. So if you're going to be in a rock fight with this Texans team and have to win the game 10-7, I think that always will favor the team with the better defense. And really, the only defense, especially after last night's game where we saw the Seahawks defense get a little bit exposed, the only defense that feels on that Texans level is the Broncos. So if it's all of a sudden AFC Championship game, Broncos Texans, like that really does feel like a game that's going to be a rock fight 10-7. Then who does it favor when you both have the first and second best defense in the league? Next up, we do have the Jags. So the Jags, I put slightly above the Texans only for the simple fact that I like the Texans defense better, but I like the Jaguars offense so much better than the Texans offense that I feel like that's where you have to put them. Now, with the Jaguars, they are 10th in the league right now in total defense. The Texans are obviously number one. But when it comes to offensively, and let me pull this up right now, the Jaguars offense right now is 16th in the league, and the Texans is 22nd. So again, their defenses are a lot closer than their offenses, which are close. But when it comes offensively, I just trust the Jaguars offense more. They have that offensive head coach. So I like what Liam Cohen, and I really like what we've seen from Trevor Lawrence the past month. And again, the Jaguars, we read it on Wednesday, the Jaguars have scored 25 points in 11 games, and that's the most in the NFL by like a wide margin. So again, the Jaguars can put up points. Texans, we haven't seen put up points, but again, whoever wins that division, the other one's going to be a wild card. I would not want to see this team in the first round, the second round, really any part of the playoffs. I have a friend who's a Bills fan that said, which teams do I not want to see in the playoffs besides, the obvious one of the Broncos? And I said, really, either of the AFC South teams. I just think they're terrifying. Now we move to the Super Bowl bubble in the middle. What is it? And CUEIL said, got on first time. Yes, you did. He said, we're about to find out who is real. The last 3 weeks, we're not only going to find out who's real, we're also going to find out what the seeding is, because we've talked about it on Monday and Wednesday's show that the seeding for pretty much every team is still up in the air, which is crazy with 3 weeks to go. But the NFL did a good job this year in scheduling it that way. I mean, obviously they got kind of lucky with how it ended up this way, but put a lot of division games in these backloaded in this past last month, which has really worked out. So he said the Strouds don't scare anyone who has a good O-line. That is true. But again, outside of what Patriots and Broncos in the AFC, I don't feel like anybody's O-line is really scary, because Broncos O-line's good. Patriots O-line's good. Bills, do they have a good O-line? I don't think so. And then Chargers definitely don't. I mean, Herbert, it feels like every game he's running for his life. But yeah, outside of that, I mean, who in the AFC has a good O-line? Who would even be in the playoffs? The Ravens and Steelers? No way. For as the top five, we're just going to go through them right here. My voice is kind of giving out on me, and I ran out of something to drink. 5, I have the Bills. 4, I have the Patriots. 3, I have the Rams. 2, I have the Seahawks. 1, I have the Broncos. I will say last night, usually I try to get these in before the Thursday night game so it doesn't cloud or change my judgment, but I did have the Rams as the second best team in the league, and I feel like that would be disingenuous after Thursday night's game to still have the Rams above the Seahawks, because again, if you're going to have the second or third team, the first time these teams played, it was a 7-point game. This time, it was a 1-point game. So it's not a wide chasm separating either of these teams. And I really do feel like you just have to, on a week-by-week basis, put the team that just beat the other team above that team. So even though I think the Rams are the better team than the Seahawks, right now they're not, because we just saw it and the Seahawks won that game. So Broncos, I feel like have to be number one. Bo Nix, again, almost a perfect pass rating last week. Really high completion percentage. It's been getting better every week. He threw 4 touchdowns last week. And again, that was all against a top 5 Packers defense before they lost all their defensive starters. So if the Broncos offense is all of a sudden catching fire the last half of the season and their defense has been damn near great the entire season, then what is the holes in this armor? If you think the entire season, if you think Bo Nix doesn't have it, well, he's proven to you that he does, because he shows up in big games and he's gotten better pretty much every week. He just keeps getting better. So Broncos have to be one. Already talked about Seahawks and Rams at the start of the show. Just to reiterate, Seahawks defense is also elite. But after last night's game, they moved to 8th in total defense in the league, because obviously the Rams and Stafford kind of did chew them up. Unlike the first time, which the first time I thought the Seahawks played a pretty damn good game defensively against that high-powered Rams offense. Last night, I don't think you can say that. I think the Rams were kind of having their way with the Seahawks, especially on that, Puka Nacua touchdown. It looked like the Rams were just confused and lost. And, Puka Nacua is just running untouched for like 40 yards. That seems uncharacteristic for what we've seen from the Seahawks defense this entire year. Now, you can say, oh, somebody tripped and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, but still, that's the point. Like, we haven't seen the Seahawks defense look lost or confused or, turned around a lot this season. And last night, they just kind of look lost for a lot of it. Next up, we have the Casinos Patriots at number 4, Rams at number 3. For the Patriots, again, I do think that when it comes to the Patriots, the thing you have to put in perspective is, yes, the Patriots are very good. Yes, they've played the easiest team or easiest schedule in the entire league, but their offense is really good. Drake May is going to finish second in MVP voting behind the Los Angeles Rams. But again, that kind of easy schedule, does that bode well for a playoffs where, especially if they don't get the number 1 seed, all of a sudden you're playing 3 games against 3 of the best teams in the league in a row to get to the Super Bowl. And then obviously in the Super Bowl, you're playing whatever ends up being the best team from the NFC. Now, yes, you can say that about any team in the playoffs, but unlike the Patriots, it feels like, especially teams like the Broncos or the Rams or the Seahawks or the Eagles, it feels like these teams, I mean, you can even throw the Bears and Jaguars and Texans in there. It feels like these teams are just always playing juggernauts every week. Every week they're in the game of the week because they're playing, another good team in the league. And the Patriots, they're not. And again, not saying that when we have seen them play good teams, they haven't risen to the occasion, but we haven't seen them have to go through the week in, week out gauntlet that these other teams have. And again, you can say the Bills at number 5. You can say the same thing for the Bills. We haven't really seen the Bills go through this gauntlet. Now, that might just be how the AFC East seeding just ended up being, but still, you have to see where, especially for Josh Allen, this feels like a legacy year for him where you don't have to worry about Mahomes. You're playing the best probably you've ever played. And again, if Stafford wasn't going out of his mind and the Patriots didn't have this soft schedule, it feels like Josh Allen is the MVP of the league. He just doesn't have the numbers to back it up. So when it comes to Josh Allen, he's never played better. He's never had less competition in the playoffs when it comes to, Mahomes, no Burrow, no Lamar Jackson if Steelers end up winning that division. So when it comes to the Bills, especially when it comes to Josh Allen, like, this feels like the do or die year for the Bills. The path is clearing up every week. So again, you're turning it on. You're being the Superman quarterback. You're being the best quarterback in the league that you have been anointed as for the past, 3 years, since Mahomes has had a couple rough stretches there. But yeah, if you're the best quarterback in the league. You don't have to go through three of the other four best quarterbacks in the league to get to the Super Bowl. Like, what's the excuse when you don't get there? Again, if it is going into Houston or going into Jacksonville and getting shut down by these defenses, like, I don't think history will be as kind to you as people will be retroactively after this game. Like, let's say first round of the playoffs, wild card, it's Bills Texans in the first round and they lose a game 14-11. Like, I don't think people are going to be like, well, I mean, what do you want Josh Allen to do? He played the best defense in the league. It's like, nobody's going to be thinking that. It's going to be, wow, what a wasted opportunity for the Bills. So there you have it. That is the official Super Bowl bubble. I'll throw it up one more time. I think I'm going to do the thing every Friday, at least for the last 3 weeks, where I just do the different categories for each like clump of team. I think that worked better than me just going through a list and reading off teams one by one. So this has been the solo Friday edition of the Only Sports Podcast. I've been Will. Me and Casino will be back on Monday to not only talk about the NFL weekend, week 16, but also talk about all of the starting rounds of the college football playoffs. Somebody said on here, I can't find it. But somebody was saying, I think Alabama or Oklahoma. I picked Oklahoma. I believe Casino did too. Yeah. So Lou Becker, 8784, said Oklahoma or Alabama. I picked, we did the college football picks at the end of Wednesday's show. So if you want to go check that out, all our live shows are in the live section on YouTube. I was putting those up as regular episodes, but actually Honey Bunny 7, who's my friend, quote unquote, homie in real life, said not to do that and to just leave him in the live section. So I kind of agree with her because I was thinking about that for the past couple weeks. So the live shows will be in the live section, untouched. I'll put clips the day of or day after. Usually it's day after because I just run out of time today. But clips for this show will be up the day after the live show, full show. The video version will be in the live section. And then the RSS, wherever you get your podcasts, will be up right after this if you just want to listen to the audio version and don't want to look at my dumpy white face and instead just hear my beautiful angelic voice. So thank you to everybody who watched this show. Thank you to everybody who commented. We will be back Monday to talk about college football, talk about the NFL, everything else. So we'll see you Monday. Adios.